it's nice to be in this community where, I mean, we're always recommending places for people to go, whether it's the next brewery after us or, what kind of food are into. Oh, you're into Indian food. We got a great Taste of India downtown St. Charles. Go check that. So there's just a lot of great cross promoting between businesses here.
Hey, welcome back to the Brewsline Roadshow. I'm your host, Daryl, and today we are in St. Charles, Illinois, near the beautiful Fox River. And we're with our friends here at Riverlands Brewing Company with Eric and Jeremy. Say hello, guys.
Oh, hello.
How you doing?
First thing, I want to welcome you to the Tagabrew family.
Thank you. Yes.
I know you don't have all the tags and everything, but shout out to our sponsor, Tagabrew. I think you guys are gonna, if you haven't heard already, you're gonna start hearing from people.
Yeah.
Looking for the tags.
Yeah,
so
we've heard good things so far.
Yeah. So happy to have you guys in the family.
Yeah, we're excited to get that started over here.
Yep. So let's just kind of tag team it. You guys just answer whichever ones you feel comfortable. If there's some other things that I missed that you think our listeners need to know, we'll cover that as well. But let's just start with just kind of a quick history of Riverlands Brewing Company.
So I'm Eric Bramwell. I'm the head brewer here, but I'm also one of the co-founders of the brewery. So we kind of started this thing. So we officially opened in 2019, but we started the brewery or the kind of planning stages probably a year and a half before that. It was me and two of my friends, Jason and Steve, and Steve's father, Andy. So it all kind of got together where me and Jason were living together at the time, and we were throwing a 4th of July barbecue. And Steve had been doing some home brewing, and he would bring me some of his homebrew beers to try. And I had been homebrewing for probably close to 10 years at that point, and we had beer on tap at the house. So Steve would bring me his beer, and I'd kind of, criticize him, as he would say. But he and his dad came to this barbecue that we were throwing and tried some of the beer that we were brewing, at the house on tap. And Andy really, really liked it and approached me about, would you ever want to do this professionally? And I looked at him first, like, how many beers have you had to be asking me this question? Like, that was
good question.
Away. I'm like, okay, interesting. So I got really excited, and I said, of course, I would have loved to have gotten into the industry at that point. And a little time went by, and he was serious. It turns out he kept asking me questions about, okay, what would it take to do this? And flash forward a year and a half or so, and it was our opening day, and we were pouring beer.
So, Jeremy, how'd you come to join the organization then?
So I was in the corporate world for quite a while, and really I kind of got into beer back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And when I moved here to Illinois from Nebraska, really kind of got involved in the beer scene here through the Guild and the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild, and just word of mouth, and kind of started like beer blogging and things like that. Wanted to get into the industry and quit my cubicle job, which I did. And so I started out selling for a distributor as well as behind the bar at a tap room part-time. Ended up moving full-time at Plank Road Tap Room in Elgin and helping manage that place. And then when I knew Eric because he would come in to the tap room there and bring some of his homebrew once in a while, and it was always really good. And I saw on Facebook that they were signing a lease for this building, and I thought, I always wanted to work in an actual brewery, not just like a bar tap room situation. And so I reached out to them, and luckily they were in need of a tap room manager, and it just kind of all worked out timing wise. So I came on in November of 2018 before we opened up in 2000.
So you've been here from the beginning as well.
Yeah.
I know it might seem obvious because of where we're located, but you could have named the brewery anything. How did you guys end up on Riverlands?
So that was a process. We knew, the Fox River being kind of the main geographical feature of this area. We kind of had thought of doing something along those lines pretty early in the process, but we didn't want to be something so hyper local like Fox River Brewing Company or something like that. We wanted something that was a little more just general appealing. And my homebrew brand was called White Pointer Brewery. And I'm a big shark nerd. So a white pointer is what they call great whites in, I think, Australia and South Africa. And it occurred to me, there's not a whole lot of sharks in Illinois. So wasn't exactly, geographical appeal on that one. So we knew pretty early on we needed to think of a better name. So kind of back to the Fox River, we were thinking something along that line. And then this was kind of right at the peak of the popularity of Game of Thrones. So I think we were kind of having a meeting, a bunch of us, having some beers, shooting some name ideas back and forth.
There was beer at the meeting?
I know, shocking. all the best decision making, I think, in history, has had beer involved.
I think you're right.
So I think Game of Thrones was even on the TV in the background while we were talking about this. And there's a region in Game of Thrones called the Riverlands, because it's where the main river, runs through. And I think one of us was like, well, what about Riverlands Brewing Company? We don't have to lean into the Game of Thrones aspect, but like the Fox Valley area would almost kind of be the Riverlands of Northern Illinois. So it kind of seemed to fit. And, once we heard that, it just had a nice ring to it. And everything else we thought of just didn't kind of catch the same way. So that's kind of what stuck.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think, we all have, well, before we jump into that, while we're on the subject of water, I know we're audio, but describe a little bit of what is behind me here. For those of you who can't see this, tell us what this Lager Lagoon's all about.
So we're all pretty big lager heads around here. We brew a lot of different styles of beer, but lager is something that has always been important to us. And I had a German beer stein collection at home, and I knew it was only a matter of time until one of my kids broke them. So I thought, they actually would probably be safer here than they would be at home. So I thought, we'll bring them in. We'll try and find something cool to do. And then we set them up on the wall. And then we have a good local artist friend who we kind of ran this idea by about making a Lager Lagoon sign. And he came out with this just gorgeous handcrafted wood, painted sign that says Lager Lagoon on it. And it's got a beer stein on it. And the table that, the two tables that we're at are kind of where we all tend to congregate as employees and have our kind of off-duty beers. So we kind of thought it'd be fun to do something with this little nook over here.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, big shout out to Mark Lucarelli, the artist, and he goes by North Star Murals. Does some amazing large-scale murals at different breweries and businesses too.
Yeah, and we're working on building the gallery out on the website, so someday maybe we'll get the whole video thing. I'll need another bag to carry it around in.
It's a whole process.
Jeremy, we met last night and talked a little bit. Tell me a little bit about, what got you into craft beer, a little bit of your personal history. I know you said you were from Nebraska.
Sure.
And then Eric, we'll go to you after that.
So I kind of lucked out in that I got into craft beer specifically at a younger age than most. I was in college. I was probably around 20, 21, and I was at a party at a guy's house, and he was a home brewer, and I didn't even know what that was at the time. And I started asking him questions, and he's talking about opening up this brewery, and we kind of thought, oh yeah, big pie in the sky, but no one's going to open a brewery in Nebraska. Like, come on. And sure enough, he did. I think he was the third or fourth brewery in Nebraska. And he's gone on to great success. It's the Thunderhead Brewing. He distributes to several states now. He's got a couple different tap rooms. But I spent a lot of 1999, 2000, 2001, all the way through 2003 when I moved here to Illinois at that brewery, learning about styles directly from him. He was big into German beers and things like that. And changed me from a Miller Lite drinker over to, all the styles. Once I moved here to Illinois, I really, like I said, just kind of wanted to get into the scene here. Like, it just seemed like a really cool industry. The people I met really just, we just hit it off so well and stuff. And so I started a beer blog called Suburbia, focusing on beer events here in the suburbs. There were some beer blogs for Chicago at the time, but they were all very city focused. And I wanted to focus on the few at the time breweries here in the suburbs. And so I did that for several years and made a lot of great contacts that way. While I was sitting in the cubicle at work, working on beer stuff instead of the actual work I was supposed to be doing.
Sounds familiar.
I worked a little bit for the guild. I did some photography at guild events and stuff like that, and just a whole lot of interviewing people like you're doing now, and beer blogging and stuff like that. So that was kind of my first toe, in the door kind of thing. And then once I got into the industry, it's just been all down the hill from there.
All downhill.
In the best way.
So Eric, I know you had a long home brewing history, but what was that point where you said, "Hey, I think I can make this stuff," versus buy it at the package store?
So,
and then kind of take us all the way to the Riverlands story.
Sure. So, I'd been a big craft beer fan for a number of years by that point. And what kind of gave me the confidence, I think, to take the step from brewing in my garage, to something at this scale was I had formed a friendship with the brewer at the time at Moore Brewing Company in Villa Park. We kind of had talked a little bit about the fact that I was going to try and start Riverlands, but I didn't have any professional brewing experience. So the guys there offered me a very, very generous, I guess you could almost call it an internship kind of thing, where I used all my sick and vacation time at my then day job, and would go to Moore and kind of job shadow those guys over there. And then about 3 months, I should say, before we did our first batch of beer at Riverlands, I quit my job and basically spent 3 months full time over at Moore, just doing whatever they'd let me do, and taking very detailed notes and brewing and brewing theory and things like that. Whether you're doing it at 5 gallons at a time or 500 gallons at a time isn't that different, but learning the equipment and it's a manufacturing job, really. So there's dangers to be aware of too if you don't know what you're doing with some of this equipment. So just learning the ins and outs and all that from those guys, that's really what I say would give me the confidence to start this place. So I owe all those guys definitely a debt of gratitude for letting me do that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about the craft beer community is, as I talk to people, there's always someone who kind of put their arm around them, if you will, and help them move into the professional ranks. And you opened in 2019, so you've been open for a while. What would you say was the most interesting, or maybe the strangest thing? There's probably a lot of them that happened here at Riverlands.
I'll take this one, and I would say it was a little thing that folks have probably heard of called COVID. We had our 1 year anniversary 3 days before the shutdown occurred. So we were in kind of a panicked scramble mode of, do we even have this party still? What are we going to do if we didn't know if they were going to shut us down or not? If they do, what are we going to do? We employ, at the time, I think we employed 12 people. What are they going to do? All these questions going through our head, and we're trying to celebrate being open for our first year. And it was probably a smaller celebration than we had hoped for, because we still had a great crowd for it, but we had a tent outside just in case of overflow and stuff, and people were scared. They didn't know if they should go out or not. And so about 3 days later, we find out, yes, the state's going to shut down, but they're going to let us stay open for to-go beer, and we didn't have any. And so we started making crowlers like crazy. We had a crowler machine, thank God. We weren't canning at the time yet. And so we were making hundreds of crowlers a day for the first couple of weeks there to stay alive. And luckily we had built up a great community of regulars and people who supported us in that 1 year that we had, that they kept us going through that time. So that was definitely, for me, the craziest thing was putting together an entire online web store in 12 hours and testing it while I was coming down with COVID and kind of getting into a fever dream state.
Oh, cool.
And then hitting the button saying, it's live now. I'll wake up in a few days and see how you guys are doing. And then coming in and seeing we're just cranking out these crowlers every day.
So that's great. So you open a year and the community really gets behind you.
Yeah.
And, kind of probably keeps you afloat, right?
For sure.
Absolutely.
No one put that in the business model when you were making the planning stages for the brewery, having to totally revamp your, sales strategy and all that.
Everything,
It's just a wild thing to have to try and to manage.
So aside from COVID, what do you think some of the other challenges that you guys have faced in terms of opening a business and keeping the business and brewery running?
Just the changing consumer trends, I think right now. If you've heard from other brewers, like some, like alcohol consumption right now is less than it has been over the past few years, and what people are drinking is shifting. So trying to stay relevant to the consumer is always something we always try and stay on top of. When we first opened, I had absolutely no plan to brew hard seltzer, but that's something that customers would ask us about, and we were selling other people's hard seltzers, so we kind of realized, well, there's clearly a demand for it here, and we may as well start doing it ourselves. So that's something we've done to give everyone who wants to come in here something to drink, and something to be excited about. But just trying to keep our finger on the pulse all the time of what's going on with the industry, really, and what our customer base wants.
Tell people a little bit more about the community, about St. Charles, Fox Valley, for people who may not have visited this area. We're what, 40 miles outside of the city of Chicago?
45, something like that.
45 miles west of the city of Chicago.
45 miles, hour and a half time.
Or more.
Traffic
Yeah.
on the highways.
The Tri-Cities, like I said, I moved here from Nebraska, but I've been in Illinois for over 20 years now. So I actually lived here in St. Charles, walking distance from this brewery about 10, 12 years ago. And I think that St. Charles itself, as well as the Tri-Cities, they have a really cool kind of drinking culture in a lot of ways. Sometimes in bad ways, sometimes in good ways, but I think that it's just a couple 2 tree communities that like to go out, and I think that we benefit from that too. The downtown of St. Charles is amazing. There's bars and restaurants galore you can walk to and from. They just opened up a big plaza down there along the river by our friends over at Alter Brewing. And so it's a great area to walk around. We're removed from that, and I would say that's a little bit of can be a challenge for us because we're out on the outskirts of St. Charles, about a mile and a half west of downtown. And so there's no one walking into our spot from somewhere else, which can hurt, but it's also nice because we don't worry as much about someone walking in 7, 8 drinks deep before they come into us. You have to know where you're going to get to us. Geneva and Batavia south of us are great towns as well that we have a lot of regulars from. It's nice to be in this community where, we're always recommending places for people to go, whether it's the next brewery after us or what kind of food are into. Oh, you're into Indian food? We got a great Taste of India, downtown St. Charles. Go check that. So there's just a lot of great cross-promoting between businesses here. And I think that's kind of what we call the Tri-Cities, St. Charles, Batavia, and Geneva has going for it.
Pretty good concentration of breweries
There really
in the
is,
Tri-Cities as you look around.
We are one of 5 breweries in St. Charles alone. And then there's a cidery in town as well. Plus you've got 2 breweries in Geneva, another 2 in Batavia. And I think every one of them is making really quality beverages. So it's fun though, because 1, we're all friends, and 2, it that kind of like friendly competition aspect of it drives everyone, I think, to get better and make the best beer we can, knowing that if you don't, the other guy's gonna. So like it makes all of us better, I think.
Variety and choice, right?
Yeah.
In terms of events and initiatives and things that you hear do at the brewery or maybe outside the brewery, tell us a little bit about that.
One of the things we've really seen evolve since we opened is, we used to be a beer destination, and we still are in many ways. We do some bigger barrel age releases that draw a crowd and stuff like that. It's evolved now to where if you're just making great beer, it's not really enough anymore. You have to entertain as well. And so we do a lot of different types of events to bring in different types of crowds. We have a knitters guild that comes once a month on Sundays and sits and knits. You know, 20 people sitting there knitting. They brought a,
Are they knitting like koozies?
they should be. We should get them to do some branded ones or something.
Right?
Yeah. They brought a spinning wheel one time. Like it's wild. We do bingo nights once or twice a month. We do trivia nights on Thursday nights. You know, kind of the things that you see other folks do, but things that we can do internally ourselves and stuff like that. What I am the most proud of, I think, that we do is a lot of summertime events. We call them the summer camp series, and we're a family friendly brewery. We have a big patio outside, and in the summertime, we do a lot of things on Saturday mornings, like at 10:30 a.m. That's family friendly. So we did a weather class where this guy showed how tornadoes are formed and how lightning works and that kind of stuff. We did a reptile show where they brought in lizards and alligators and stuff and snakes for kids to see up close. We did a robot war thing where there's robots fighting each other here in the tap room, you know. We do turtle races, which is one of our most popular events.
Yeah, that one.
And that's
gets people going.
And you know, that's one of the things that I love too about those events. We can tie in with the community. You know, we work with St. Charles Park District on the turtle races. They bring the turtles, and we're raising money for their habitat and stuff like that. So those are some of the most fun events that I get to see because, you know, sure, it's some of our regulars will say, yeah, it's kind of like Chuck E. Cheese on those days because there's so many kids, but you know, it's bringing those families in. It's giving them something to do. They're in and out, you know, from 10:30 to 12:30.
And mom and dad probably buy a little beer. Yes.
Mom and dad usually buy a couple beers and take some home too, you know, and we keep stuff for the kids around too. So
what's in the future? What are you guys thinking about going forward with Riverlands? I was over at Binny's. I'll jump this Dean Street. So tell me a little bit about kind of your growth, if that's an offing, or just what some of your future plans might be.
So we've been very fortunate that every year we've been open, we've been growing our kind of, I think, sales footprint and just the capacity that we've been able to make. Thankfully, people have responded well to the beer we put out, and generally have been wanting more and more of it. So that's a good thing. Dean Street, like you just said, you know, that's definitely our biggest seller. You know, we've kind of been trying to expand the distribution of that beer in particular and getting it in more places. One thing we've kind of been proud of so far is growing every year, but doing it in a very controlled, steady manner where, you know, you never want to get out over your skis and overextend yourself. And I feel like that's where some breweries who have shut down, you know, the past couple years, that's kind of where they've run into problems. So our expansion goals right now are just to kind of keep doing what we're doing, slow growth, kind of like, you know, kind of stair step that up every year a little bit. We just added a couple more tanks this past year, and that's going to enable us to make more beer. And we've had some big kind of accounts that we've been able to get some kind of like beer brands brewed for them, you know, that are exclusive beers to those things. So that's helped too. But it's always been the goal, just slow and controlled, and kind of slow and steady wins the race, right?
Yeah, I think the last few years we've really focused on the tap room the most.
Yeah.
I think we still drive 75% of our total revenue comes from the tap room. So it's important for us to always be improving that. During COVID, we would open up what we called our beer garden. It was just grass that dipped in the middle and became a puddle every time it rained. And we would just throw tables out there and just make it work, you know. And now we've got our nice paved patio. It's lit. It's got shade sails that we put in last year. So every year we've kind of added a little more. We put in the patio itself, got some cheap tables for it. Then we put in like a little structure out there, and we put the shade sails up, and we got nicer tables last year. And so we're always just adding a little more to there. But now I think we've almost maxed out what we can do as far as the tap room goes. Large scale, you know, we can't make any more space for more people where we're at right now, but there is more room that we can move more in distro. And so I think you'll see us kind of like focusing a little more on distro, finding a few new accounts and trying to find ways to get more beer to more people who can't get to the tap.
Let's make it a little bit more personal. Tell me a little bit about what you guys do in your time outside the brewery, although it might be limited, if you're like most of the small businesses I talk to. Right. But what do you guys do outside the brewery?
Got a lot of my, I've got two kids, so a lot of my time is, and they're both in very competitive travel sports.
I understand that.
Stuff. So a lot of my time is spent usually either at baseball or basketball tournaments out of here, which is a lot of fun. It's an easy way to make friends with the other dads when you tell them what you do for a living when it's brewing beer. So usually I'll the baseball games, it's fun to bring a cooler and stuff, and yeah, that absorbs a lot of my time. It's time with family for the most part.
Sure.
I don't have kids, so I have a little more free time when I'm not here, although I'm here a lot. Most of my time is spent with my girlfriend Burgundy and my dog Cooper. I've got a 9-year-old German Shepherd, so trying to do stuff with them. And then we just started this past year kind of a side hustle selling comic books. I'm a big nerd, so I had a bunch of comic books that were just not doing anything, sitting around, and I started like a little channel that I sell comic books on my spare time.
Oh, that's cool. All right, it's time to talk about the beer. Tell me about the flagship beers. We talked a little bit about Dean Street, but just, what are some of your flagships? What are maybe some of your seasonal favorites? Give people an idea of, what to expect.
Sure. So we've got, I would say, 2 to maybe 3 flagship brands that anytime you come here, you'll see them on tap. So Dean Street and Kayak Pills are the for sure ones. So Dean Street is our all Citra hopped hazy IPA. It's by far and away the beer we sell the most out in distribution, and a largely amount, or one of our best sellers in the tap room as well. But then we have our award-winning, I can say, thankfully, German Pilsner Kayak. And that one's my baby. That's the beer that I think we probably have most painstakingly tried to perfect, which is an endless goal. We're always trying to get it better and better. That's definitely the beer I drink the most of, and I think that's probably on any given week our number 1 or number 2 selling beer out of the tap room.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one I feel like our regulars probably gravitate towards. And then we've got another beer called River Life. It's our we call it a pale lager. It's sort of like an Americanized version of a Munich Helles. But it's just your basic kind of clean, easy drinking lager. And that one, it's not on right now, but I would say it is probably 80 to 90% of the time. But then the other things that we tend to focus on is we always like to have a West Coast style IPA, which is going to be a little bit more lean and bitter and still super hop saturated, but definitely a different drinking experience than the hazies. We always like to have a hazy double on. We have a fruited sour series called Acid Rainbow that we always like to have one of those on. And it's kind of rotating what fruit's on in that. And then we've got a pretty well-renowned barrel-aged stout program. So we typically have some barrel-aged beer on, whether it's a stout or a barley wine, whether it's flavored or not flavored. But we always like to have some kind of high-octane stuff on tap as well.
Absolutely, yep.
Anything special, any special techniques or ingredients that maybe you've come to be known for that might be a little bit different?
So I don't know about different, but we just we won a Great American Beer Fest gold medal for a barrel aged imperial stout that we did with coconut. So I don't know if you'll be able to hear it on the podcast, but my assistant brewer Bree is brewing right now while we're talking, and then she's trying to convince me to get a tattoo of a coconut with a crown on it, because she says we're the coconut kings now. So I guess coconut's probably one of my favorite ingredients. That's not like your normal, barley, water, malt, hop kind of thing.
What makes a good team member here at Riverlands?
Oh man, so when I came on board, one of my first things I did was created our handbook, and I really had this, I have this kind of deep-seated hospitality bug that I've always had for whatever reason. And so I really wanted to bring that hospitality thing across. So when you opened up our handbook, it says we have guests, not customers. Everyone that comes in is going to feel like a guest, not just a number. And I want to hire people that are going to hold that standard up. So during interviews, when we first opened, we only hired 3 bartenders, part-timers, and the ones that we picked, we still have 2 of the 3. The other one has gone on to become a head brewer somewhere else, so we can't fault him for that, although we do all the time. and everybody that we've really hired since then, for the most part, has stuck around unless they've had to like move away or something. But I always tell them, like, I can teach you about beer, I can teach you how to pour beer, I can teach you about our different styles and about our brewery and our history. I can teach you all of that stuff, but I can't teach you how to be kind to people. I can't teach you how to greet everybody like with enthusiasm and stuff like that. I can't teach you how to treat people as guests and not just customers. And I can tell people who have that ingrained in them somehow. And so that's kind of been my focus when I've been hiring people.
Do you make them invite you like to a dinner party to see how good a host they
That
are
would be
before you
actually a
hire
great
'em?
idea, because then I get a free meal too.
Yeah.
Jeremy won't brag, so I'll do it on his behalf. But one of the things that I always love to see on our like Google reviews and things like that, even more than anything beer related, is just how frequently we get complimented on our staff. And that starts with him and goes down, and everyone, who works behind the bar here, I think is just top tier at what they do, and just wonderful, interactions with customers. And, you like I said, kind of that starts at the top down. So,
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I have two more questions. Most of the folks I talked to had some kind of history in home brewing or some other area, and there's probably a lot of folks, I hope, that are listening that are thinking about this. Right? I want to get into the business. My friends come over; they like my beer. Sometimes they even like it on the first one instead of the eighth one. Maybe I should get into this. What advice would you guys give them after starting a brewery?
Well, let me start from my perspective as a home brewer who doesn't brew at all anymore. In the early 2000s, I started home brewing, and I feel like I was decent at it. I didn't have any beers that I dumped. I thought they all were to style and tasted pretty good. And I went to a few home brew club things and whatnot, and I enjoyed it. And then when I got into the industry, I stopped home brewing because I was like, man, there's a lot better beer than mine out here. And I had such access to it that spending so much time on that side of it didn't seem valuable to me personally anymore. I enjoyed home brewing, but we all know it's 90% cleaning and as is commercial brewing. And I had that hospitality part of me more than the brewing part. So for me, it was finding a way through and navigating the industry that didn't involve that part that I really actually thought that was going to. I was kind of like, I kind of want to be a brewer. And then I was like, maybe it's a different part of the industry. So maybe think about different options there too.
So to me, there's a couple good books if someone's looking to get into home brewing. One of them is The Complete Joy of Home Brewing by I think it's Charlie Papazian, is one that is just technical enough where you can learn what you're doing, but it also keeps things pretty, easy and light, and it's not too tech heavy. It's an easy read. I think John Palmer's had a book just maybe called How to Homebrew. I don't remember the exact name of that one, but those are both good places to start. But to me, I think someone who's getting into homebrewing and why you should do it is just that kind of like chasing flavor to me. It's that thing. That's why a lot of people like to cook too. You just want to chase that flavor. And sometimes, if you're drinking beer and you want to know about the hops and like, to me, that was so interesting. I wanted to know what made these hops tick and things like that. To me, I wanted to make something with those so I could learn about those ingredients and stuff. I like to cook too. So like I said, it's kind of.
So being a little bit more of an artist with it, right? Understanding how they'll go together. And then, as you said, in terms of making the leap, if you will, to get out of the cubicle like Jeremy did. But making that leap, it also sounds like being willing to do a lot and see a lot,
sure,
and have some good mentors. I mean,
and so if your heart is set on it and you're really good at it, and you've got the capital to do it, then I don't think that just because we're in a downturn necessarily you should absolutely not do it. I just think you need to go in eyes open if that's your plan.
I think I agree with you. There's opportunities in every cycle, right?
find somewhere that's not oversaturated. That is really hard to do these days.
Yeah.
When we opened up, we were one of 2 breweries in St. Charles, and there was 2, I guess, in Geneva and none in Batavia yet. And,
I don't even think Art History had.
yeah, I think there's one
just
in
Penrose.
It was just like, and now, like we said earlier, there's 8 or 10 or however many there.
Yeah, and I think you also hit on something earlier that's important. I think becoming a little bit more, you mentioned all the turtle races, right?
Mhm.
And broadening that audience you go to, because I mean, there was a time where there were enough people going out looking for craft beer
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
that if you had a tap room and you had craft beer, you'd make some money, right?
Yeah, my advice for anyone with a tap room is find and try weird stuff. Like sometimes things that you don't think will work, knock it out of the park. And then some
Like
of the
knitting.
like knitting or like the turtle races. Like I told people we're going to turtle races, they thought we were out of our minds, but
And
the house for it.
I guess you can even broaden that to people in the community. Don't forget that a brewery like you guys might be a perfect place to host a
Absolutely.
book club or a knitting club or
For sure.
whatever the case. There's people think of, they got to go. I love what you guys do in the afternoon on Wednesday.
Oh, the work from here happy
Yeah.
hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've done that since I think maybe week 1 that we were open.
So you kind of took the happy hour in a little different direction.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of coming over here after work, now that people are working everywhere,
Sure.
come on over here and work.
Laptop in, work from here from 12 to 4, get a nice price on some beers. I mean, it was something, it's never been gangbusters, but it's always been a bigger crowd than when we didn't do it. And so it just always made sense.
Yeah.
And then, look for interesting and weird opportunities in your community too. What are some groups or businesses that you wouldn't think of would work with beer, but maybe they do somehow. We're doing a cupcake pairing next week, which some people think is weird because who drinks beer with cupcakes? But man, they go really good together.
Yeah, that means they haven't tried it yet.
They haven't tried it yet.
Once you have, you can't go back.
We've done some great beer dinners at different restaurants at their location and here, and just collaboration. If you're not collaborating in your community, then you're not really part of the community. Like you got to be in there getting some cool things going.
And that's something we strive for from day one, was to be active, involved in the Tri-City community, especially, and just be a community gathering space. And I know that sounds cliche at this point, because I think a lot of breweries say that, but that's for good reason, because a lot of breweries are kind of like that third space for people now to gather and just enjoy people's company and engage in activities, that aren't even necessarily revolving around alcohol, like turtle racing and knitting and things like that. It's just an opportunity for people to participate.
No, I think people have been enjoying each other over a beer for a long time.
That's right.
Which gets me to our last question. What beer should I try today?
That's an easy answer, I think. I don't know. I've got a different answer than you, I think.
Well,
I'll try. I can try more than one.
Well, then I've got it. So I think anyone who comes in here should try Kayak Pills, and then one of our hoppy offerings. So I think IPAs, I think when we first started, is what everyone probably knew us for more than anything else, and it's still what we distribute the most of, whether it's Dean Street or our double IPA. So I think anyone who comes here should try an IPA. But then, anytime anyone comes here who I know, I'm throwing Kayak Pills at them for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so we're picking Kayak Pills, and Jeremy, you had another idea?
I'm going to go with a seasonal one. I do agree with them. If you come here, you can only do 2 beers, do Kayak and Dean Street. But I think if you can come here more than once, or if you can fit that third beer in,
When that happens.
right now we've got a seasonal on, Midnight Silence. It's a Schwarz beer. German black lager, one of my favorite beers to begin with, and then this batch he absolutely knocked out of the park, so that's my go-to.
And that's why they make flights, right?
Right.
Well, you know what, guys? I think I'm going to try some beer.
There you
All right, we're back. I got some beer in front of me. Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome.
So we're going to go from my left to my right. We're going to start with the award-winning Kayak Pills. So let me give that a shot.
Yeah, like Bram said, this is probably our most like, I don't know, difficult beer to ever feel like we've completely accomplished the exact perfectness.
There's like, to me, German style Pilsner, there's just this such a delicate balance of malt and hops, and it has to be crisp, but it still has to be flavorful. You know, you want to be able to drink, you know, pints of it and want to keep coming back for more, but it has to be satisfying. There's just so much going on in such a simple beer that to me, like, it's one of those, you know, like you're always going to chase that perfection and that you'll probably never get it, but it's fun to try.
Well, I'm telling you guys, this one hits all the marks.
Oh, thank you.
He's gone to great lengths to perfect that beer as much as possible, from, you know, tweaking the recipe constantly to new horizontal tanks to all kinds of stuff. So
Wow. You know,
happy with where it's at finally.
good work, gang.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, the Dean Street I mentioned I've had in my hotel room the last couple of evenings, but there's something always better about it being right on the tap. So,
Yeah, Dean Street's been just killer for us, both in distro and here at the tap room. Like I said, it's one that somebody comes in, they want to know, what are you guys known for? That's the beer I usually pour for them. And the fact that we sell so much in distro, it tells me that people are coming back for it. You know, they don't just try it once and then move on to something else.
well, and of course, there's a lot of hazy choices, right?
Yeah.
Tons of
Yeah.
choices out there.
Tons
One
of-
of the biggest categories in beer, if not the. So
So repeat business, you know, it says a lot. Yeah, I'm the Citra hops in here, and it's just got a nice, well, like I said, it's got that nice juiciness to it without being. I get some of the hazy. It tastes like milkshakes sometimes too.
Right. To me, the thing that makes a truly great hazy IPA is a very, very delicate balance between just enough sweetness and hoppiness, but it still has to be drinkable. I've had a lot of hazy IPA where they get syrupy sweet. And sometimes that's
where I was
beer
going.
packed with flavor, but if you can't have more than 5 ounces of it at a time, then to me, like, that's not where we want to be. I think the best hazy IPA that has inspired us are breweries, whether it's 7%, 8%, even some like times triple IPAs. You can drink a pint of it and be like, oh my God, this was a 10% beer, but I felt like I just drank it like it was a 5% beer, just because they're so drinkable, but also so soft.
So
That's
yeah.
we're
So
always
what does this? What does this one clock in at?
6.8.
Yeah. No, it does not. Hit like a 6.8,
And that's always the goal. You
which
want
is
right.
good and bad.
It can sneak up on you a little bit.
So midnight.
all right, Midnight Silence. That's our German style Schwarzbier. It is dark as all get out, but it's not thick. It is light bodied. If you hold it up to the light, you can actually see light through it. Kind of a garnet, real deep garnet color to it. It's roasty, but not too roasty, which I think is always a hard line to toe with that style of beer. If it gets too roasty, then it gets like that bitter coffee grounds roasty.
Right.
And if it's because there's no body to back it up, and if it's not enough, then it is a really a Schwarzbier, you know. So
Right.
that's how I feel about it.
I think I think the Schwarzbier is one that, you know, I discovered late. And that might be because a lot of brewers discovered it late. You know, it's not on every menu.
Right.
But I think most folks, if they try it, they like it. And it's not an everyday beer, I think, for me, but it's a treat.
Yeah.
It's one of those styles that I think like people see it in the glass, and there's this like misconception, I feel like, that all dark beer is strong and heavy. You know, some of my like less craft beer, you know, kind of focused friends and stuff, they'll see me drinking something like that and they're like, oh my God, that's got to be so heavy and strong, right? And people say, you know, that about Guinness all the time.
Yep.
Guinness is so heavy and full and strong. Yeah, it's only like 4.2% or something like that ABV.
It just looks meaner than it is.
Right. So that's kind of the same. We wanted something that if you wanted a dark beer, but you wanted to be able to have a couple of them, that would scratch that itch. You know, and we always try to have something like that on the tap list.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it hit the mark, what you expect, and maybe a tad more. A little bit of smoke in this one. And Jam.
Oh, yeah, big boy there.
J-A-M.
JAM Jam. So it is three initials: John, Andrew, Mark. That is Andy, our co-founder, our main founder's initials. This is kind of a note to him for helping fund the brewery and all the stuff he does. He's not just the money guy, but he also paints our walls when they get all banged up like they are right now, or like he does all kinds of maintenance stuff that when I'm 20 hours behind the bar and 20 hours doing management stuff, I don't have time to do. So he's a hands-on owner. He likes to get things done for us. I'll let you talk about the actual beer though.
Yeah, so that one, barley wine to me is always special. It's a barrel aged. So we barrel age most of our barley wine here, but it's one of those things where there's not a lot that goes into a barley wine ingredient wise. It's a high quality barley malt, a few specialty grains that give it some of that color and intricacy of flavor. But really, it's just about your fermentation practices and the barrel aging process. So that was 3 different batches of barley wine that we brewed over the course of 3 years, that went into 3 different barrels and then were blended together. So one of the blends was a 3-year aged Angel's Envy bourbon barrel. The other one was a 2-year aged Four Roses bourbon barrel. And the last was actually a batch of rye wine, which is a barley wine with a large component of rye that we brewed. That was in Willet rye whiskey barrels. So we and that was in there for 2 years. So we blended those 3 barrels together to get that blend for jam. And I feel like each one of those barrels brought something important to the table. It's just the right blend of sweet, enough spirit heat, a lot of oak character. And I thought the different bases complemented each other really well.
Tell our listeners a little bit more about what makes a barley wine versus just a beer.
Sure. So it's a pretty old style of beer. And I think it was, and someone will probably correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I believe it was brewed originally for like the aristocracy. Like it was brewers saved their finest high strength beverages for important people, and these beers were wine strength, but they're made entirely from barley. So that's kind of where the term came from. I want to say it was probably a style that originated in England or the UK. But it's kind of become something where we tend to brew English style barley wines, but there's a number of good American style barley wines, which usually will have a little bit more hop character to them as well. It's one of my favorite styles, just because, like I said, there's not a lot of fluff to it. It's just it's barrel and beer, and that's what it is.
Yeah, and again, there's you got the oak. There's there's a little bit. The rye gives it a little bit more spiciness.
Yeah, it helps to cut the sweetness.
I think that's why I like this particular barley wine better than other ones we've done, or just other ones in general. But that tiny little bit of rye spice note in there after it was blended, it cuts down that sweetness a little bit, and it just makes it a more interesting beverage to me.
Some nuance that it adds for sure.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you again for welcoming us, and again welcome you to our Tagaroo family.
For sure.
I get out this way. My best friend lives 15 minutes from here.
Oh, great!
Shout out to Keith and his 2 new grandbabies.
All right.
So, cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers. Thank you. We look forward to seeing many Tagaroo folks here.
Absolutely.
Yep. We'll be back. The Brews Line Roadshow is a production of The Brews Line and presented by Tagaroo USA. Theme music for The Brews Line Roadshow is provided by Mikey Garrett of the band Fever Dream. You can find out more about The Brews Line at brewsline.com.